Hi, and welcome to another episode of Adoption in Focus, where today we're joined by one of our adopters, and they're here today to talk about the benefits and challenges of contact within adoption. So, hi, and welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. Would you like to start off by telling us a little bit about your family?
Yeah, sure. So we have two girls, beautiful little girls. We adopted them when they were 6 and 8, just over a year ago. And they're now 7 and 9 because, like all children, they age. And time keeps passing us by. Um, our eldest is, I should also say they're part of a group of four, actually. So they have two younger full birth siblings. And they were separated from those when they went into foster care, and now both of those siblings have also been adopted by other people who we're in contact with. Our oldest is an absolute bag. They're both bags of energy, but especially our oldest, she loves everything physical. She loves doing sports. She does football, and every day she has PE at school is a good day for her. And she used to do ballet and tap and all sorts of stuff, and she just loves all sorts of running and activities. And our youngest is also very, very physical little child, little blonde nutter. She prefers mostly being upside down, is what my husband and I joke about. That she's upside down doing a handstand or a cartwheel more often than she isn't. So they're amazingly little, bright little buttons, very funny little girls. And yeah, we've been together as a family of four for a year now. I think that's the
That's
summary.
fantastic. That is fantastic, and I love the picture you painted of both of them there. So, I guess you don't get many quiet days in your house.
We don't, especially not in the beginning. At the beginning, it was all, chaos and energy and mummy, mummy, mummy and running around and, yeah, real, excitement vibes. But over the year, it has really, really calmed down. And actually, our oldest, one of her favourite things now is to have a chill day where she just lies on the sofa and, like, watches a bit of TV and then has a little nap and then, like, asks for a snack and then watches TV and then has a little nap and then asks for a snack. And then she repeats that for most of the day. While our youngest, and as this weekend showed, loves to do just jobs with us, just like normal household chores. She calls them mummy jobs, even though 90% of the time it's actually daddy that's doing them. And she'll just go around. This weekend she spent 6 hours helping my husband clean the house.
That
And
is
she loves it,
phenomenal.
just polishing, organising stuff in her room. And yeah, so we do get like days where there's that, as well as just the mayhem.
The
Yeah.
mayhem. So you mentioned there that they're part of a sibling group of four. So I'm wondering if there's any contact arrangements in place with them, and also are there any contact arrangements with birth parents?
There are. Maybe I'll start with the siblings. So they have a younger sister and a younger brother. And when we started the adoption discussion, we were asked, would we be okay with contact, in-person contact, or at least, sending videos, sharing photos, that sort of contact? And we said, yeah, absolutely. And in fact, one of the reasons we got into adoption in the first place was to keep siblings together because my husband and
Yeah,
I really believe in that. And so we were very open to that. And so were the initial adopters identified for the two younger siblings. And that has a whole history with it. But eventually they were also adopted on a slightly different timescale to our girls. Our girls have been with us longer. But now the younger two are with a lovely, lovely couple who are really friendly and nice and just sort of on our wavelength. And so we're in regular contact. And by regular, I mean like every couple of days, once a week, we share a picture or just something normal that our girls are doing, that the younger two are doing, like when they started back at school or what their Halloween costumes are going to be, things like that. So we share videos and chats like that. And then we also try and see them. It's only been 4 months since the younger two have been adopted, so we don't have a full year to compare, but I'd imagine seeing them 3 or 4 times a year. And we were actually asked to commit to that in the paperwork, which we did, thinking, oh, well, that might change. It depends on where they live, if they're
yeah,
close to us and all of that. But given that there's 4 children and they have 4 separate birthdays, we do try and really see each other quite on the birthdays or near to the
yeah.
birthdays. So in a couple of weeks, we'll be going down to see the younger two because it's the youngest boy's birthday. And yeah, have a little birthday party all together. And our girls just love that. They love seeing their siblings. And the siblings came to, their girls had a joint birthday party this year at the end of the summer when school started back. and their siblings came to that with their new mummy and daddy, and our oldest got to like parade them around. It was really like a showcase of these siblings, because oddly, and this is maybe something people are thinking of adopting siblings should think about, especially when they've been separated. Some people in her school didn't really believe that she had a brother and sister, because she,
Really?
yeah, it was really sad. And she was saying, "Oh, I've got, it does sound a bit fictional when you put it like this. I've got a brother and sister who don't live with me, who really live really far away, and you can never meet them because they live really far away, and I don't get to see them that often. But blah 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 blah." And so some people, I think, were thinking, "Oh, she's making it up,"
Yeah.
and so she was really keen to prove she was not making this up, and that here they were.
Here they were in the flesh. They're real. They exist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I
it was
appreciate that you're
nice.
kind of not yet a year in with younger siblings being adopted, but do you think it brings your girls a sense of kind of comfort knowing that those dates are going to be in the diary, knowing that there are, you're going to make an effort to meet up on these special occasions, and rather than it being kind of unknown and uncertain for them?
Absolutely. And we were a bit nervous about it in the beginning, both because we don't really know their siblings that well, or didn't at the beginning, compared to how well we know our girls. And we're also nervous about meeting the parents, thinking, "Oh my God, are we going to get on? Like, what type of situation is this going to be?" But it all went fabulously well, and it really helps our two, especially the older one, who was she's sort of a little bit older than all the others, and she was really the little mum, they used to say, when she was
Yeah,
in care, and when she was in birth home as well. And so for her, especially when she moved into foster care, she was really worried about them, and that reduced over time and has really reduced when she's been with us. But she still thinks about them a lot. And sometimes, if we're having a really nice dinner that she thinks her younger sister, who doesn't live with us, will like, she'll be like, "Oh, can you take a picture of this and tell her new mum how to make that, because I think she'd really like it," and really sweet things like that, as well as obviously wanting to send them Christmas presents and birthday presents and things like that. I think in the beginning, our girls were a bit nervous about meeting up again,
yeah.
especially the first time we did it, when um, our girls had a new mummy and daddy, but the younger two hadn't yet been placed, and so they were still in foster
Yeah,
care.
so how to handle that dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a bit tricky for them. And our oldest, particularly, was quite sensitive to that, and yeah, needed quite a lot of space in the weeks after that. So yeah, it was, but it's generally extremely positive for them, the contact.
That's interesting that you mentioned that she needed space for weeks after, because I do think something that possibly could cause adopters anxiety about this type of direct contact is kind of the impact that it will have, and also perhaps how long it might go on for. So I, I do know that all children are different, but from that phrase, am I thinking it's right? She needed a bit of time and space to kind of process it. Did she feel a bit quieter, or did you see her kind of more anxious, maybe?
Yeah, she's quite anxious anyway, but she was quieter. I think the thing we were worried about, which did happen with both our girls, to a lesser extent than we were worried about. We really thought it would be a big problem. Was that our oldest would go straight back into that mothering mode, that
Yeah,
we worked so hard to help her out of. And she did do it a little bit the first time we met up, and in the moment. And then afterwards, she was also challenging our boundaries, and trying to say, "Oh, I can still do that myself. I'm independent, like I used to be in birth home." And she does that all the time, but it was definitely more intense in the sort of
yeah,
couple of weeks after the first contact. But then it really, really ebbed, and sort of went back to how it had been before contact. And then the second time that we met up in person with her siblings, she was really not like that. She'll always be a bit of a maternal figure, and she's like that with the other kids in the primary school and the playground. And yesterday they had this rainbows and brownies thing, and she was looking after all the little rainbows, and she's just that type of person. But importantly, when we went for that second contact, we went to a big soft play thing, and her little brother banged his head, like somebody just
yeah,
banged into him. He wasn't seriously hurt; he just got a little knock, like kids do. And every other time that I have seen them together, she has tried to take care of that herself.
yeah.
And she didn't at that moment. She actually came over to me as her mum and said, my younger brother's really hurt himself. I think he's really hurt himself, although he hadn't. Can you come and look? Can you come and look? So I went into the soft play, found
Oh.
said crying kid. He was absolutely fine. Gave him some words of reassurance, her some words of reassurance, and off they went playing. And she would just never have done that before, you know.
Yeah.
And their foster carer, who was still looking after the younger two, was there for that, and she was like, "That's a different child to the one I've seen, who would
Wow.
never have asked for help." And now we're at the stage where we have contact, where they'll ask my husband and I to come into the like play. We almost always go to a soft play thing. They'll ask us to come into the soft play with them and like play around as mum and dad, and they call us mum and dad. And the younger two seem to really understand that. So it's really, that side of it's really positive. The Our youngest, the thing we were worried about was there was a very negative story told about them in birth home, which
Yeah.
was that the two blonde children, which is our youngest and the youngest boy, are were the bad children. That's not my words. That's birth home words and other words. But they still say that story about themselves sometimes when they do something
Yeah.
naughty. Particularly when it is quite naughty. They'll say, "I'm the bad child. I feel like the bad child," and they were repeating that to each other as well. Our girls,
Gosh.
when they would say things like, "Oh, I feel like I'm the good child and she's the bad child," and it was very much that two brunette children against two blonde children, all stereotypes. And so we were very worried that our youngest would go back into that mentality when she'd made such improvements with her behaviour.
Yeah.
And she didn't, not at all. And we reassured her, we did a bit of prep work, and we talked about how we're all the same as some people and different to other people, and that she's got some things in common with her brother and some things in common with her sisters. And that message really went in, and we reiterated it on the journey home and a few times afterwards. And I think that really helped. Unrelated to this, but I hope unrelated to this, we did have a very bumpy period as a family after the first. Actually, was it the first meetup or was it the second? In the second, in sort of March time, but I'm not sure that was caused by the contact. It was a flurry of all sorts of things,
Yeah.
and it's so hard to tell what set off these bumpy periods. But yeah,
I think that's true. It is so hard to tell what sets them off. But even if it were the contact in some way, shape, or form where that was a contributing factor, it was a bumpy period, but it didn't last forever. And it
yeah,
certainly sounds like kind of the preparation work that you did and the thought that you gave, like the possible vulnerabilities for your children, um, and kind of to support them with that, help them come out the other side. If that makes any sense, I'm not sure that was a complete sentence, but that prep work I think is really important. That
yeah, yeah.
consideration.
And
Yeah.
we do that a lot, especially with our youngest. If another child, any child that she has contact with, but especially the siblings, if they've done something that is, naughty, like break a crib or break a pen in school, and people are saying, "Oh, that's a bad thing to do. Don't be a naughty child." We intervene and say, "There's no such thing as naughty children. There's no such thing as
Yeah.
bad children. There's only good children who sometimes make mistakes and do a little bit of naughty behaviour." And we rammed that message home for 6 months with our youngest, and every time her younger brother was mentioned, we would say something positive about him, like, "Oh, he's
Yeah.
so creative," like, "Oh, he tries so hard," "Oh, he loves those trucks, doesn't he?" And like all these types of things. And that helped her reframe him as a good child, and therefore her as a good child as well. And so, yeah. And now he's with new parents, the new adopters. They are fantastic. I keep calling them the new adopters, sorry, because we're the old adopters because we went first. um, but yeah, it's really positive overall, and I would say that there will be changes, and we've seen changes already over the last year with contact and things, with moving from foster care to adoption for them and for our girls settling in and stuff. But overwhelmingly, I'm really positive about it and delighted with the way that it's going so far.
That's so good to hear. I know I'm backtracking here a little bit, but you mentioned before that kind of when you and your husband went into adoption, it was important for you to keep siblings together, and that was one of the reasons why. Um, so I'm wondering, when you were going through kind of the linking and matching phase, did contact arrangements or perhaps your potential children having more siblings, was that like a big part of your thought process, or did it just mean that you would have been open to whatever contact arrangements your girls would have had?
We definitely would have been open to any contact arrangements, but it was pretty clear from us from the very beginning what it would be. And the reason for that is that the all four of them were put on Link Maker as a group of four, and they tried to do
Right.
family finding for them as a four. And obviously placing four children between the ages of 8 and 1 was really, really difficult, obviously, and they couldn't find a match for all four. So then they had to make the difficult decision to separate them. And I think that they thought that they would not find a match for our older two, but they did, because they're older children, 6 and 8 coming to
Yeah.
us. And so it was very clear in all the initial descriptions on Linkmaker and all the initial documentation that this is a bonded group of four and they want to keep contact with the siblings.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll come on to birth parents and things, but it was also clear what they wanted the arrangements there to be. And so we were never sort of unclear, and we also really supported that as a plan.
Well, you mentioned birth parents there. So what's contact been like with them?
Yeah, so we are just at our year mark. So the formal contacts arrangement are yearly letterbox arrangements with both birth parents, birth paternal father, so the grandfather, and the one grandmother, and the aunt, the paternal aunt, and with foster carers as well, but we're in touch with them separately. We're just coming up to that period now, and we are in the process of drafting the letterbox letters, which has
How's that
been,
going?
yeah, exactly. We literally only just started this week, and it's been emotional. But oddly, it's something that I have been thinking about the whole year.
Mm,
And there's a reason for that. But every time something that's really, I think, if I was their birth parent, I would want to hear about this. I make a little note in the notes section on my phone, and so I've got loads of very small examples. I probably won't include them all. When the girls just felt really happy, or they had a big moment of progress they were really proud of themselves for. When our oldest went up to stage 4 swimming, she was just really delighted about that, and she just was happy for about 10 days because she'd gone to
yeah.
stage 4 swimming. And so I wanted to write a few examples throughout the year about that. I think we will write a slightly longer letter to birth father than we will to birth mother, both because of their different interests in the children, but also because birth father made the incredible Herculean effort to meet us in person. So
Wow.
we met him last year when we were in the middle of introductions with the girls in person under a supervised visit with all the social workers and everything. And that was, honestly, it's the bravest thing I've ever seen another human being do. It was just shocking, wonderfully shocking. He clearly really loves those girls. He's somebody who's had a hard life and difficult circumstances. And before we met, I thought, oh, this is somebody who's basically, sorry to say this, a bit of a loser and hasn't got his life together. And then all this stuff has sort of happened, and then drugs and alcohol, like always. And he's, hasn't done the best for his children to the extent to which they've had to be removed. But after meeting him, I felt a bit differently. I felt, actually, this is somebody who's had some serious bad luck, has no social support system and no government support system. And he really wanted, and in all the follow up sort of contact that we had through social workers, not direct contact, it was clear to us that he wanted the best for
Yeah.
the two that we have and the younger two. And, he made the effort to write down things that he would want our oldest to do, particularly that he used to do with her when she was sort of 4 and 5, and that meant a lot. And so the letter that we will write to him, I think, will reflect that. For example, they really, really wanted to continue with football because they used to do football together, and our oldest
Yeah.
loves football, so she's in a football club. And to talk a little bit, she just did a tournament last week where her team came third, and she was so happy because I didn't even have a team 6 months ago. So, things like that we'll include. Birth mother, I'm a little bit more hesitant about.
Mm,
She didn't want to do and wasn't allowed to do the face to face meet, and yeah, it's harder, I think, when you haven't met somebody. So for that reason, I'd advise everybody, if you get the chance, do the face to face meets. We've got a picture of that moment, and that picture will mean a lot to our girls as they grow up. But yeah, so it's harder with her. But then it hasn't been that hard to write the letters. It's been a bit emotional because you just think, oh my God, that's a year of my life. I can't believe it's already been a year. Um, where has it gone?
Where is it gone? Yeah.
But they're also, it's just lovely examples of the kids, what they've been doing and like what they found fun and how much progress they've made in school and, just little bits like that. So far we haven't found it that challenging, really. Maybe it's just because we love to talk about our kids too much.
I think that can't be a bad thing. Just going back to the direct contact with birth father there, right at the start, you mentioned that the photo means a lot to your girls, but I'm wondering whether there's been occasions where you've been able to talk to them about that meeting and whether being able to tell them things from that meeting has helped.
Yeah, we have, especially with our oldest. She had a bit of a sort of meltdown a few months ago, about birth father and missing him and finding it difficult because at their final goodbye contact, he was crying, and she was very upset about that and said, "Oh, do you think he's still crying?" to me, and I said, "Oh gosh, that's
Oh,
so hard to
bless
hear."
her.
Um,
Yeah.
but we talked about that, and I said, well, etc., etc., and I'm sure there's a way to, and then I told her that we'd write these yearly letters and she could be involved with that and tell us things that she wants us to say about him. Yeah, the main reason that photo and that meeting came up, actually, it was a bit of a strange one. Our oldest has been doing like genetics and all that stuff in school and how people
Oh,
are
wow.
biologically related. And so she's asking all sorts of questions. Like, this was a few months ago now. When I grow up, will I have glasses like daddy, meaning adoptive dad? And I was like, no. Well, you might, but not because of the reason you're talking about.
Not, yeah.
And she was like, and will I grow up to be as tall as you or as tall as him? And I was thinking, well, actually, birth dad's pretty tall. So I'm thinking you're going to be a giant. And so then we started having this conversation about like where your genes come from, and that's from birth parents, and that genes don't mean everything. In fact, some people might say they mean very little compared to your lifestyle and your upbringing. Birth father's really tall, so you might be really tall. And she was like, "How do you know he's really tall?" And I was like, "Oh." And I could have said, "Oh, because I've seen it in the paperwork" or something, and fudged it, but I didn't. And because I didn't have a fudge answer, she's very smart. She
Yeah.
looked at me. She was like, "What? What do you know that I don't know?" And I was like, "Well, what I know is that I've met your birth father, and Daddy and I went to meet him so that he could tell us all the things that he wanted you to know for your future." And she was completely shocked. And in hindsight, probably should have done it a bit earlier. But it didn't feel right earlier.
Wow.
And so we had a conversation with her about that, and it really helped her, I think, to know that. And to know that there's a picture of that and all the things that he said at that meeting, we've talked about them. So that helped her a lot. Our youngest didn't really have the same reaction to it. We told her at the same sort of time, and she was like, "That's fine." And I was like, "Okay." She's very like that. That's her personality. She's like,
Yeah.
"Does it mean I can still have pudding?" And I was like, "Yes, it's not a punishment, sweetheart. Like, come on, chill out." She thinks anything serious is somehow related to pudding, but that's being 6 and 7, I think.
I think so too. But I love the way you captured in that anecdote that feeling as a parent when you're kind of jumping into the abyss because something's come up that you've not planned or prepped for, and you're thinking, I could fudge an answer, or I can just kind of go with it and be honest. But I don't know the reaction that I'm going to get. But it sounds like for both the girls, it was a positive reaction in that moment. Going back again a little bit, you were saying about your eldest being involved in the letterbox letter by telling you kind of like what she might want to pass on. Have you found that they want to engage in that way, or does one child perhaps not really want to do it?
Because we've only just started writing it themselves, we haven't gone to them for the really specific stuff yet,
Yeah,
and that sort of thing. I think we'll probably, in fact, I've already got a selection of photos that we will include of the girls. And I think we'll let them choose a photo, which photo they think they want to send once we've checked
yeah.
security stuff, and that there's not a street sign behind them or something.
The school
They're not in their
name
school
or anything like that.
uniform.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing we'll definitely do, and certainly we'll ask both of them. Are there any specific stories or things you want to share, or things you want to ask as well? Because they do get the chance to write back as well. But I think it's important for both our girls that we are seen as the leaders and we are the parents to them. And when we don't do that and we give them too much choice, they get very wobbly. So we have to
Right.
be quite strict and organized. And when it's something very emotional, I'm almost always say I'm the leader, because they have this thing in school where they have like leaders and followers, and then they have leaders
Yeah.
and peer mentors and stuff. And so we frame it in that way. And I say, I'm the leader, I'm in control here, I'm going to give you a series of choices, but remember that mummy's got it, we sometimes say. Sometimes we say daddy's got it, but not that often. And that really reassures them. So I would love to have them more involved, and I think that they will be as they get older. But right now they're
Yeah.
just at that stage of development where they absolutely need that security and hand-holding through very difficult emotional things like this obviously can be. So yeah, we'll do that sort of thing. And I've already got a few stories and examples from both of them written down, and I'll say, do you want to include that? Is that something you'd like to share? And if they say no, we won't put it in. And if they say yes, then we'll put it in,
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you have any concerns about getting a response or perhaps not getting a response from the various people that you're writing to?
Yes, obviously, like everybody does. I think not getting a response would be the worst case scenario, like for both
Yeah.
of them. I think we'd fudge it off as maybe it got lost in the post, but our oldest, would never believe that. She would
No.
chase it. So I really hope, certainly the first year, that they do, even if it's one line, that they
Yeah.
communicate back. And I think that they will. I hope that they will. So that's a worry. Because it would upset them, they
Yeah. It's their pain you don't want to see. Well, you don't want them to feel.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that would be harder for our oldest than it would be for our youngest. Our youngest would forget
Mm.
about the entire thing, and then if nothing comes, then we just won't remind her of it, and that'll probably be fine. But our oldest will remember, and she remembers everything from when she was about 3. So she'll definitely remember this. So that would be a worry. In terms of when, hopefully, they do write back. Yeah, I'm a bit worried how they'll sign off the letters and the things they'll say. We talk a lot about love in our family, and like the different types of love, and how some people can love some people but not do the best things by them, and that love doesn't mean good all the time, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And particularly for our youngest, she really combined the idea in her head that love could also be violence.
Yeah.
And that was really, really difficult for us. And it's still an ongoing issue for us to unpick. And yeah, I'm a bit worried that having the letter might reactivate that, if that's the word, for her. And for our oldest, yeah, I think she'll just feel a bit sad and upset. She has not fully yet processed the fact that she's still very much going through grief and loss.
Yeah.
And that is obviously hard for her. And she feels the loss of birth father particularly. And you really see her mourning that in the way that you would if somebody had died, but without the clear explanation of a death. So it's tricky for her, and we are worried about her response to it. But at the same time, I know that she'll value it when she's older, and so it's something necessary that we have to go through. And we'll just, if we get a response, when we get a response, we'll just pick the right moment.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is that it's sort of connected to contact, sorry, but it's not directly in your questions. That like having a very clear understanding of their life story is really important to
Yeah.
our girls, and that they will quite often both ask, did I do that when I was young, or what happened with this? And do you know, I know when we went into the training process, they said there'll be those questions you just don't know the answer to, and there have been a couple of those. But honestly, like, we know so much from the documentation that I've been able to answer almost everything. Like, was I born in a hospital? What time I was born? Like, did I? Our oldest fell down and banged her head and had to be hospitalised for it and have stitches in it. And like, I knew how many stitches she had in her head. And I know, and it's turned out that I have a fantastic memory, because I remembered that from reading it once in one line in a par, over a year
That's
ago.
amazing.
And she was like, "How do you know that?" And I was like, "It's in the paperwork, mate." And that has become a like standard line in our family. Like, it's in the paperwork, and that being tied to birth parents and to contact, and for her younger brother and sister as well, is really important. And that our girls get really, really happy whenever we know something that they're unsure about. Like, for example, their younger brother's birthday, and then they were talking about it. And then our oldest, you suddenly saw that she had this look of panic. She was like, she knew what month it was in, but she didn't know the day, like the date. And
Oh.
I was like, "Oh, it's this date." And she was like, "How do you know that?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm your mum. I know loads of things." And she was like, "Oh, good. So I'll put that date in my calendar. We can do the birthday." She's very organised. "We can do the birthday card a week before. What do you think we should get him? We have to make sure it's posted on time to get there on this date that we just talked about." And she was really delighted that I knew that stuff. And so if it comes up in the future, I wouldn't be adverse to asking things in the letters, the contact
Yeah, if
letters.
you've got that ongoing contact arrangements, then you can actually be proactive to get the little gaps that are left,
Yeah, yeah.
because you've seen the comfort that it offers the girls, and that's
It does, and it, in a way, it feels like we were with them all the way through. I know not everybody has that experience, but it because we know so much of the history, and because they're older, and we were able to, they're also able to tell us things, and then we can remember them, and then they forget them, and we still remember them, and so that, in a way, is a form of contact, even though it's not direct contact. So yeah, overall, really, really positive. And yeah, I want to say ask me again after we've done it in a couple of months and see if we've got any letters back. But we
do a
certainly
follow
go
up in
into it with
12 months' time.
optimism.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much for coming to join us today. It's been absolutely fantastic to hear your experience of contact and also kind of like your girls' experiences of contact and the effects that it's had on them. And I certainly found it very moving and powerful hearing about your reflections on meeting birth father at the time. We really hope that the people listening to us today have also found it useful. Please do remember that if anyone out there has any questions, if there's anything that they would like to share, or if you fancy joining us on a podcast yourself, then please do not hesitate to contact us. Just drop us an email at podcast@adoption-focus.org.uk. Thank you for listening.